Hello and happy Halloween, or is it? So I felt to do a video about this because many people are celebrating Halloween today, and it's actually not Halloween. The ancient name was Samhain, spelled Samhain, and this is one of the 8 Sabbats, which is where the word um, taking a sabbatical comes from, sacred space for yourself to focus on your soul's needs. It's also where the word Sabbath comes from, the holy day. So there used to be 8 holy days in a year, and these were and are the vortices on the seasonal wheel. So that's the shortest and the longest day, which are the solstices. The equinoxes, when we have equal light and dark, which are halfway between the shortest day and the longest day, winter solstice and summer solstice. And then we have the fire festivals, which are the cross-quarter festivals. So these happen at the exact halfway point between each of the solstices and equinoxes. Now, a little bit of a red herring. Pope Gregory changed the dates of our calendar when he introduced the Gregorian calendar in, I think it was 1582. Yes, 1582. Curiously enough, that is when women were starting to be persecuted for having mystic knowledge. And they changed the dates of the cross-quarter festivals. So instead of people coming together and doing ceremony during the potent time of the vortice, they were doing it on different dates. So the traditional date of October 31st, the day of this broadcast, is actually not the real date to be coming together and doing ceremony. So what is? Well, this year, because it changes slightly each year, this year it's November 8. So that's the 8th day of the 8th sign. So a very auspicious date this year in 2024, given that 2024 also adds up to 8. So, 8 is the number of abundance and power. And this year, we're really being challenged to step into our power. And how do we do that? By looking at where we're not empowered, our shadow. And that, my friends, is the theme for Samhain. Now, the name of this date, Holy Day, was changed to All Hallows Eve, and that then became Halloween. So if we think about when we enter a sacred space, we'll often say, oh, it's hallowed ground. It means it's a sacred time. So this is the sacred eve. The eve of what? The eve of the new year. In the ancient tradition of the Hieros Gamos, which means sacred union, living in union with the seasons, with the cycles that govern us, that initiate us to grow like nature into our divine design, our divine blueprint. The more we align with nature, the more we fulfill our potential with grace, with ease. And this is what the ancient tradition of the Grail was about, which the mystic women taught. So when the mystic women were being burnt and drowned, the Grail and the practices and the teachings of the Grail were distorted deliberately as a strategy to keep the populace dumb, to keep us like children looking to external authority. So what is the lesson of this special festival day? Well, it is about releasing what we've outgrown. Okay, this is a harvest. In fact, it is the final harvest before the winter solstice. Okay, so the first harvest was called Lugnasad, named after the sun god Lugh, Lughh. And for those of you in England, Lugh's ley line goes right through the south of England. And so this was a time when we honored the sun god, and the sun that he had given us, but it was like, okay, it's time for the first harvest. All right. So this was the cross-quarter festival before the autumn equinox. So the first harvest festival. And this is when we would harvest the fruits. Okay. So there'd be bobbing for apples and, we'd bring in all the summer berries and make fruit compotes and jams and jellies. And then the second harvest festival was autumn equinox. So the halfway point between the summer solstice and the winter solstice. And this was the second harvest festival where we harvested the vegetables. Okay. So we'd harvest the vegetables and we'd store them like nuts for the winter. But Halloween, or Samhain as it was called, was the third harvest, and this was the harvesting of the meat. And this is when the weaker, older animals that weren't going to make it through the winter would be respectfully sacrificed, and the meats would be cured and stored to get the people through the winter when they really needed that extra vitality, bone broths and things to support their immunity. You've got to remember, this is when people didn't have great heating except for fires. So this festival of the meat, it's also a metaphor for we are now having to sacrifice our lower self. Okay, so it's not about, doing human sacrifices or anything, but rather that, like in the descent of Venus, when she goes to the underworld, she's hung on a spike like a piece of rotting meat. And this represents the release of our ego, okay, our lower self and all the things that our lower self is attached to, the things that perhaps aren't that good for us. And the more we cling to them, the more we sabotage our growth, because the ancients acknowledged that without a death, there can't be a birth. Okay, unless we're prepared to give something up, to make the space for something new that offers an opportunity for us, we can't have both. Okay, there has to be a release. So if you're a parent, this is a great time to go through your kids' clothes, your kids' toys with them. Help to teach them about the value of recognizing endings. It's like, okay, what do you no longer play with? And who would get more benefit from that? Who could we think of that we could gift that to? So they can start to live in alignment with the wheel, okay, rather than fearing change and fearing death, which is what happens, fearing endings, when we don't grow up learning to honor the cycles, the wisdom of the cycles that govern us. So similarly, the tradition of trick or treating wasn't about kids, just getting as much lollies and candy as they could get their hands on and getting all sugared up. This tradition comes from the children honoring the ancestors. Okay, so they would go door to door and they would sing songs to honor those that have crossed over the veil in their family tree, but are there as benevolent spirits, genies. Okay, like the word genealogy, the word genie meant a helpful ancestral spirit. So this is the time when the veils, the dimensions are thinnest. So we have more chance of being able to connect with our ancestors. If we light a candle or cook their favorite meals, the Mexican tradition of Day of the Dead is very much about the fact that ghost and guest were once the one word. So this is a time of us cooking the favorite meals of our ancestors, because whilst they can't physically eat with us, they can enjoy the aroma, okay? They can enjoy, um, you know, being remembered, stories of what gifts they imparted, yeah, or funny stories. It might be trickster medicine about what they got wrong and how that was a great teaching. So it was a time when we would gather the clan and we would remember. We would remember those that walked before us, and we would ask for their help because this is a very, very important crossroads. This is when we make the shift from autumn to winter, okay? Just like a man would carry his bride across the threshold, the role of the mystics was to assist people over the thresholds, so that, you know, we could fulfill our potential. And I'm excited that there's a property that I'm going to check out in Morocco, and I've been shown in ceremony, through a drum journey, not through plant medicines, but through a drum journey, that this is a place where I will be helping people cross all the thresholds, inviting people to come and stay, to do communal practices, to do retreats, to shift from one life stage to the next, or from one season to the next. So yeah, stay tuned for that. If you want to be the first to know about it, you can go to themoonwoman.com and sign up. So yeah, we would invoke our ancestors to help us make good choices at this time, because this crossroads, whatever we don't give up, we're going to take with us for another 12 months. And if it's not good for us, it's going to sabotage our highest destiny. So this is a very powerful time to state 3 times, I now align with my highest destiny. In fact, I do that every day. But, you know, we want to invoke supernatural aid of our ancestors. They're also known as the little people, or the ancient ones. So on the understanding that, you know, the Grail emphasized the power of our choices. And if you want some wise parables, Grail parables to read at this time, check out my book, The Grail, Grail, by Tanishka. It's on Amazon, and you can also get it on Audible, Spotify, as an audio book or as a Kindle. And it speaks about, I mean, one particular myth, which isn't in that book actually, the tale of Baba Yaga. And we think about the jack-o'-lanterns. These mimic the skulls of Baba Yaga. Who is Baba Yaga? She is the grandmother, the crone, and she lives in the forest, and she's quite scary to the uninitiated, to those who have willingly gone to face what they fear, their shadow. She becomes a benevolent guide and a mentor. So she resides in the forest, okay, where we can't see the wood for the trees, the place of confusion, the place of chaos. And a lot of you listening to this might be in that time at the moment where you're so caught up in do I, don't I, in indecision, not knowing the right path to choose. And like the saying, when you don't know what to do nothing, but instead go into that place of surrender, okay, of asking, show me, give me a sign, show me what the path is, and invoke your ancestors. Whether you put their images up on an altar, you light a candle, you drum, you listen to trance invoking music and lay down and meditate and ask them to come and speak to you. You might do a breathwork journey. And this is a time when, you know, we are called into the dark. So in the ancient world, this is when you would return to the mystery school or the temple to do practices to own the shadow, to explore your fears, your insecurities, your wounds, the things that are unprocessed, so that you can integrate your psyche, which means soul, not mind, so you can be more whole, more healed, more holy, and make choices from that place, from the heart, which is most holy. So I'm doing some events, which I'm very excited to share with you if you're in or near Lewis or Glastonbury, in the 11th month in November, which is a time of atonement, a time of coming into oneness, unity consciousness, of doing the work of deep integration. So these events are specifically for owning the shadow, so that we're not sabotaging our happiness, we're not sabotaging love. One event is about exploring the shadow dance that happens in all relationships, Okay, doesn't matter whether it's an intimate relationship or, a friendship, or whether you're LGBTQ or hetero, it doesn't matter. We all do the same shadow dance in relationships. So this is lifting the veil to acknowledge that and to get tools and strategies so that we make good choices when we're triggered. The other event is owning the ways that we've all hurt each other, how we all play the roles of both victim and perpetrator. And when we can see that, we can transcend unconsciously creating karma drama, wounding the people that we most love. So I invite you to check out those events. I'll put a link in the description. There are very limited places. So if you're interested, book sooner rather than later. So this time that we're coming into, this is a time of us reclaiming our power. So I spoke of Baba Yaga, the young girl Vasilisa, her fire goes out. And this is a time when a lot of people will be feeling burnt out, okay? Like you just haven't got the energy to keep doing that which no longer inspires you, no longer lights you up. And it's time to acknowledge that, because if you override that, you will get sick, okay? So we've got to acknowledge what no longer lights our passion, gives us a sense of enthusiasm, ignites our creativity. And we have to go into the place of the great nothingness, great mystery, and review, how have my values changed? How have my goals changed? Yeah, so that we can not be bullied into doing things by the mind, but listen to the quiet, benevolent voice of the heart that says, I'd like to do this now, please. Yeah, this is what my deepest desire is, and follow that, even if it doesn't make sense to the mind, even if we're afraid of people not understanding us and judging us harshly because they can't understand the heart. It never makes sense to the mind, let alone anyone else's mind. But if we follow the heart, the path with the heart, we will end up with the greatest bounty, the greatest harvest we could imagine. But it means at this juncture not making the devil's bargain, not going for that which promises a quick return, okay? A quick gratification like the child or the teenager, but has a lot of hidden costs which are going to cost our soul, okay? So this is a time when the Holly King looms large. This is why we see, we decorate the winter feasting table of Yule with holly, because it marks the end of his reign. But this gateway from Samhain to the winter solstice is when he looms large. And who is the Holly King? He is the Dark Father. He is the inner critic that judges us harshly if we haven't activated the wise feminine within. So this time of the wise feminine is the time of the crone, she who is crowned with wisdom, the elder woman, she who has luminous hairs like the moon, okay? She who is a beacon of wisdom in the dark. And the word crone originally meant crowned with wisdom. Now we've been taught to fear her as a witch. She was originally honored as a woman with her wits about her, a wise woman. And when we persecuted the archetypal wise woman, we stopped listening to common sense, okay? And that has cost us dearly. In fact, it's cost our happiness, it's cost our health, and it's cost the true abundance of the earth. And that's what we're now being invited to restore, our path of wisdom back to living in health and true wealth, which is enjoying the abundance of the earth by living close to the earth, close to her cycles, honoring the wisdom of her cycles, knowing that she will take care of us if we humble our ego and honor the ways, the spiral path of the earth. So I hope that's been helpful for you. This is a time of magic and mystery. It is the crossroads of death and rebirth. And at those crossroads, we meet not just the crone, Hecate as she was known, who often wakes us up in our dreams with a night mare. She was said to ride the mare through our dreams, waking us up with important dream messages. But also Hermes, the Magi, the sacred magician. And these two are present at every crossroads. Every incoming soul and every outgoing soul is midwife by their presence. And I know when I went into labor with my daughter, I saw Hecate standing in the corner. So you can invoke their presence of Hermes, the Magi, and Hecate, um, the crone, the wise elders, to help you make good choices, because this scythe that comes down now, what we take into winter is what we are gestating, what we are conceiving, the seeds that we are planting deep in the earth. So make sure that the seeds that you take with you are like the seeds of Jack and the Beanstalk. They are filled with magic and mystery. They're filled with the potential of your soul's deepest desires. They're not perhaps fool's gold, the seeds that glitter and look amazing, but actually offer no real soul fulfillment for you. So I hope that's helpful. Have a beautiful Sawain, and yeah, enjoy dressing up as your alter ego, the part of you that perhaps you reject or shun or afraid is unlovable. And yeah, enjoy connecting your children with their ancestors, however you choose to do that. Ciao for now.